Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking to Emilio, who is a medical student in Parma. I am very grateful that he's doing this interview because a few years ago I did an interview with a representative from the Italian course, and it's so nice to finally be able to talk to a medicine and English student. So Emilio, thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you want to give yourself a small introduction.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And of course, I wanted to also thank you for the time and consideration towards the University of Parma, because I saw the other interview. Actually, Giacomo is one of my best friends within the university. I was very happy that he shared his thoughts about the university. But now I'm even happier because, of course, there is the opportunity to interview someone who is actually dealing with the university and all the positive and negative sides. I will try to be as objective as possible about my experience. I'm a third year medical student. I'm going for the fourth year. In October, I will start soon with clinical years. I didn't start the clinical rotations yet, even though I've had some hospital experience in the past. I currently work as a representative for the course council and the department council. I'm also representative at the municipality of Piacenza, representing the medical students of the University of Parma in Piacenza. And I could say, okay, I have some other experiences, but I want to talk about them maybe later. What I've been doing so far in the university, it may be interesting to understand what are the opportunities for the students. I don't want to spoil everything right now. So this is it for now.
Cool. So we'll leave that as spoilers at the end for the fun stuff you can
Exactly,
do.
exactly, exactly.
So I guess let's start with like all of the basics. What is the schedule like in Parma? Like when you start in first year, do you have morning classes? Do you have evening classes? Do you have classes all day? What's your day to day like?
We have classes from Monday to Friday typically. The only exception, I think, is the second semester of the first year, which is from Monday to Thursday. And we typically start at 10:30 in the morning. I know that sounds very late. And actually, I think it is a little bit late because when you start medical school, you start to also understand how important it is to have like independent time that you can spend for preparing for the exams. And the earlier you start in the afternoon, the better. So we start late and we finish at 1:30. Then we have a little lunch break, 1 hour, and we typically finish all the classes by 5:30 in the afternoon. And the typical routine would also consider that you need approximately 30 minutes to go to the library or to go back home for studying. I personally study at the library until 9 p.m. And if I need some extra hours because I'm in exam session, then I just go back home and continue studying. This is a typical routine. I'm trying to also ask the faculty to start some classes earlier because the reason we start so late, I assume, is because professors have to drive all the way from Parma to Piacenza, which typically takes 50 minutes driving. So this is, I assume, the reason. But I've noticed that many professors are very flexible and they also want to start earlier. So what I'm trying to is to open a discussion about it because the earlier we finish, the more time we have for studying. That's really as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. Also because those days are very long. Like in some universities, they split it into morning only classes or afternoon only classes. So those are quite long days, and that continues throughout the 6 years, or is it only for first year? Or
We have this thing which is a little bit weird. The 6 year is just clinical experience. We only go to the hospital and we work on the thesis. So all the exams are basically concentrated in the first 5 years, which may be challenging up to a certain extent because the workload becomes huge when you cannot interrupt the flow with clinical rotations during the 5 years. But Yeah, the sixth year is basically free. Also, if you have some like exams left behind, then you can try to still finish.
So
Um,
wait, that's so interesting because right, how it works in I'll say Sapienza is you have to do TPVS, right, which is 300 hours of your
exactly.
right. But so you guys wait until sixth year to do all of that?
So all the TPVs are in the sixth year, yes,
Okay,
which are the
interesting.
ones that are mandatory for becoming a certified medical doctor in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
The other clinications will take place during the fourth year and the fifth year, but they're more like experience in the hospital. The certified amount of hours is concentrated in the sixth year, like the ones that are mandatory. So I don't know exactly how it will work because we are the first year basically that I, we can say we can collectively say that we are the experiment. My class is the experiment, so we didn't start the clinical rotations yet. We have a research clerkship, which is improving year by year. But the apart from the hospital experiences that we've had, I don't know how that will work. I assume what I feel like, even though things may change, is that we will be asked to pick the subjects that we are interested the most in during the fourth and fifth year. And then, of course, the sixth year, there is the ones that you have to do general surgery. That those are mandatory. So you will not be able to choose the subject that you're most interested in. That's it. Like you have to do
Mm-hmm.
them by law.
So, but in sixth year, there's like no scheduled classes. Like theoretically, you are completely done with classes, correct?
Exactly. Unless
Wow.
anything changes,
Yeah.
we are basically free. I would see it as an advantage when it comes to being able to find your own opportunities. For example, I assume that some students will be good enough at finding an opportunity abroad to work for their thesis. They will not have to care about skipping classes. They will just depart from another country and work on their thesis. I think the university will appreciate those kind of opportunities a lot, and so they will do everything to make the process as smooth as possible. For the ones that have maybe some exams left behind, I think the sixth year will be the like it will be nice to think that you will have one free year for recovering for like catching up with all the things that you've left. That's what I assume. But of course, my experience is very limited because we don't have a sixth year to ask to, like a sixth year medical student that I can
Yeah.
ask, how do you feel about the sixth year?
It's okay. We'll
So that
repeat
it will be
the
an
oh,
experiment.
we'll repeat the interview in 3 years and find out.
Exactly, exactly.
Cool. So what are the types of clinical experience then do you think you're going to do next year, and what have you been exposed to so far? So I know that you've been creating a lot of your own experience. I know you're very proactive about it.
Yeah.
But if we could first talk about what the university organized experience is like, and then what your experience has been like someone who is very proactive and maximizing all their opportunities.
Okay. So I will try to split the answer into two parts. The first part is about the research clerkship, so what has been done so far, and what could be done by the university, like what I expect the university will do for the future, for the fourth year. And the other part, I'm going to talk about the uh, what to expect if you are able to create your own opportunities. So for the research clerkship, it was, I'm gonna be very honest, not so interesting in my ear. As I said, I'm gonna talk about the negative sides and the positive sides because our year was a little bit, of an experiment also for the professors. What it was the first time there is no such a thing like a research clerkship for the Italian course, and what I've noticed is that it improved dramatically from the first year to the second year. Now, the students who have done the research clerkship this year, they've done much more lab experience. They have they've been able to arrange a wide set of opportunities. For example, you will be able to choose if you're interested in a microbiology, a research clerkship, or for example, a physiology research clerkship. I think the most interesting one is the microbiology one, but for my personal reasons, because I've done the biochemistry one. It was more about the research methodology and the literature review. If you're interested in that, go for it. But the university was able to also give improve the offer.
What year? Sorry, what year do you do this in third year?
Second semester of the second year.
Second semester of second year. You do
Of
a
second year,
research
exactly. You
internship.
do a research clerkship. So it's pretty early. And if you choose the right clerkship, the one that suits you the most, then you will also be able to go to the hospital either in Parma or Piacenza. And if you're also a proactive student, you can even do a little bit more as the doctors there. What I've seen is that the doctors, especially in Piacenza, they are very excited to have medical doctors around because probably they are not very used to having medical students or in general students in the hospital. So they are very happy to share their knowledge and to teach how to get the job done in a hospital. So what I see is that each time I go to the hospital, the doctors are excited, which is nice. It's very exciting. Like it's one of those, because at a certain point, passion is not enough to go through medical school. You need something that motivates you. You need some outer things that motivate you. And seeing a doctor very helpful, very nice to you, it's one of those things that I like about the Piacenza hospital. So what I expect about the clinical rotations in the fourth year is that the university will step aside from this process and each professor will try to arrange their own clinical rotation. Like this is not, I'm sorry, this will not be conducted by the university. Like it's not going to be the university who will arrange the things that you will see in the hospital, but it will be the professors and the doctors. So you will have to be very careful and find the right professor, the right subject to get the most out of it, I think. And this is like it has advantages and disadvantages. I think it is an advantage, me personally, because it's up to you to find the right, like the standards are going to be higher for some subjects and collectively speaking is going to be better, I think, to do a sort of micromanagement, to give some part of the management to the professors directly to them. The second part of my answer is going to be about like, what if you are proactive enough? I think that's one of the advantages of being in such a small environment. Our course is small. We have few students and many professors, many doctors, which is making things better for you if you want to learn from the practical point of view. Like if you want to ask how to perform a certain task, you will 100% find a professor who will take the time to teach you how to do that. We've had this experience with the suture techniques course. So the University of Parma gives you the opportunity to choose among a set of very small subjects. And one of them is suture techniques. So they try to teach you in the first year how to perform very simple sutures. The better you start, I mean, like it's just better. During this course, one of the professors, we found out he's the director of general surgery unit in Piacenza. So we were taking lessons directly from the director of the department. He's a very important surgeon, and he was so happy to see us interested in his subject that he invited us to his ward to directly enter the operating room and see the surgeries. The University of Parma didn't interrupt this process. They just accepted the flow because they were very flexible. They somehow understand that this course has different needs. than the Italian course. So sometimes you're just flexible enough to let the students enter the hospital and do these kind of opportunities. And I personally coordinated a flow of students in and out of the hospital. Um, and in like 2 months, probably around 200 students saw at least one surgery in the first year, either the first or the second year, which is an opportunity that is not guaranteed to most Italian medical students. So we've had a certain amount of flexibility. The more you're proactive, the more experience you can get, because professors, they're just waiting for us. They are just so excited. I'm not gonna spoil the other experiences because we're gonna go through them, also the international opportunities, etc. But this is basically my answer to. So no worries. If you want, you can do extra hours in the hospital.
Yeah, the only problem that I really have with this is, I mean, I think it's great that you guys are given such flexibility, and obviously the professors don't get that many opportunities for students, so they're very eager to teach. The problem that I have more so with this is that if there isn't a student like you to organize this, how does it get done? Right? So, how do
Hmm.
the doctors and professors make sure that everyone has a fair turn? How do they make sure that the people who don't speak Italian also get to go in? You know, this is the, like, I do see it,
Okay,
I see it as a positive as
I
well.
get, I get it.
But, you know, now that I think
I
about it,
completely
yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking because uh, so as for the research clerkship, I see that the university is trying their best to make it improve. In my year, it was okay. My experience was bad. My experience was bad. What I expect is by the time that prospective students will enter University of Parma, they will find a path. For us, it was difficult to see a path because we didn't have any student to ask, how is your clinical rotation like? For us, it was more like trying to create our own path to stay motivated throughout the process, throughout the medical years. And this is still happening. This is a work in progress thing for us. But by the time that these prospective students will come, they will see the light out of the tunnel right at the first year. I think. I think.
I mean,
I'm trying to
speriamo.
be very honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Speriamo, exactly. Speriamo. No, no. Okay, look. If the clinical rotations are in the Piacenza hospital, most of them, at least most of them, because if you want to do a thesis in neurosurgery, you will be asked to travel to Parma, of course, because you don't have such a thing like neurosurgery in Piacenza. It's a smaller hospital. Like the thing about the hospitals in Italy, there are some hospitals which are for the community, like Piacenza Hospital is for the Piacenza patients, and some other hospitals, like think about the Pavia Hospital, even though they are serving a small town like Pavia, they are hospitals for Italy.
Yeah.
They have a large number of spots. So what to expect is a medium-sized hospital for Piacenza, not a huge hospital for the whole Italy, like the one in Parma. But if the clinical rotations are managed by the doctors in Piacenza, I think everything is going to be super fine. Like, this is my point of view. But we'll see. We'll see. Of course, we'll see.
Yeah, so kind of to stay on the topic of the hospital. So this course is Parma University, but you are located in Piacenza. So your
Yeah.
hospital is Piacenza Hospital. Where is your campus? Where do you do your classes? Do you do the classes in the hospital?
Actually, no, which is like a paradox because most um, Italian medical schools are basically located inside of the hospital campus. It just makes things easier. The long-term project is gonna be to build a new, advanced, super technological hospital in Piacenza, but that's on the long term. So I will not talk about it because, okay, we're gonna, like, the final destination of our course is gonna be inside of the campus of the new hospital, which is gonna be built in like 8 years, maybe 9 years, we don't know. So for now, our course is located next to the Cattolica University, which is on one side of the city, while the hospital is on the exact other side of the city. How do we travel from one side to the other? We don't. Basically, we don't because because clinical rotations didn't start yet. So what I think is that they're gonna move the fourth year somewhere, like anywhere close to the hospital, um, which has a disadvantage. We're going to be isolated from the other classes. I don't know if this has been decided yet, but I've heard in the department and the course council that probably one solution is to locate the fourth year close to the
So,
hospital, very close to the hospital.
where are the first, second, and third year classes now, though? Like, do you have a
The
building? Like, how does it?
Yes, we have a building next to the Catholic University. It's called Palazzo Portici.
Okay.
So for now, that's our building, Palazzo Portici. Um, what about the facilities? Because I've seen one of the questions, very important questions that students ask are, what about the canteens, the
Uh-huh.
study rooms? What about the campus facilities? Do we have them? The very straightforward answer is no, we don't have a canteen. We just use the Cattolica one. No, we don't have study rooms. We just use the libraries in the city center or the study rooms in Catholic University. Sports facilities, we use the ones that are present either in the city center or the Cattolica ones. There is a special convention between UniPR and Cattolica, so it almost feels like we are Cattolica students up to certain extent. Like during the lunch break, it feels like we are Cattolica students.
But so
Um,
Cattolica has a university in Piacenza?
exactly. Yes.
Really? I didn't know. Okay,
I'm
interesting.
sorry for not
No, no, it's
specifying it. I'm
okay.
sorry. So the Piacenza town has four universities. One is a University of Parma, our course and some other courses, for example, nursing or physiotherapy. Then Politecnico of Milan, Cattolica University, which is the biggest one, like the biggest university within Piacenza. And then there is Conservatorio, which is basically where you learn, where you get a degree for the instrument. I'm sorry, I don't know the English translation
Yeah,
for that.
it's the same in English. Conservatory school, right?
Conservatory, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And since the Palazzo Portici is located right next to Catholic University, we just use their facilities, and the UniPR has a convention with them. They opened the course because they could guarantee a medium to long-term convention with Catholic University. That's the reason. So, I mean, I think it's one of the things that we lack the most. At the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, it's what you feel like it's very important to you. If you want to feel the campus environment, then probably Piacenza is not the best option for you. If you want to be in a place where you can somehow unlock the potential of being proactive and try to create your own opportunities, then probably Piacenza is the place for you because the hospital is flexible with trying to second the students who want to have more experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on what you feel like it's very important to you. If you are not able to uh, do your lunch and bring it to your
But
exactly.
but the thing is, like, you have access to Cattolica's facilities, right? Like, if I was a Piacenza
Yes,
student, I can go to the library in Cattolica University and study there.
absolutely yes, absolutely
Okay, I
yes.
mean, to me, that's not that big of a deal then. Like, it's one thing if you guys had no gym, no, sorry, not no gym, like, no library, no thing, no facilities. But, you know, if you have an agreement with another university and you can use it, I think that's kind of fine, but that's just me personally.
It's fine. At the same time, as a representative, my point of view of this is a little bit controversial because I see that some people are complaining about the lack of facilities. So even though I can easily adapt to this kind of situation, I still feel like some students are a little bit unhappy with the fact of not having a like our canteen,
Okay.
our study facilities. Also, one other thing is that the buster, probably we're gonna go through that in detail when it comes to talking about the city, but I'm doing a little bit of anticipating the topic. The bus service stops at 8 p.m. and
8 p.m. That's dinner time.
exactly,
What? It stops
exactly,
before dinner.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It stops at 8 p.m. So maybe Palazzo Portici is not a place you want to be after 8 p.m. because you would have to walk all the way to the city center. And for this reason, most students, they either study at home, even though I consider studying with friends part of the preparing for exams in the medical school. Uh, and most other students, they just study at the main library in the which is located right in the center of the town, which closes at 9 p.m. I still think it's a little bit like it's too early. It's too early, but I'm trying to work on that by opening the discussion with the Piacenza municipality. Unfortunately, little has been done so far for extending the timetables. Also, I'm sorry, the opening hours of the library. Also, there are very few spots. Unfortunately, Piacenza is growing very fast on the university side. I don't think the number of inhabitants is growing fast, but for sure the number of university students is. And for that reason, I feel like day by day it's more difficult to find a spot by the time that we finish classes, because we finish at 5:30. It's too late. When we go to the library, like all the spots are taken. So
And you're referring to Cattolica's libraries, right? This isn't like some national library
no,
in Piacenza.
I'm talking about the public library in Piacenza.
Ah, okay, the public library.
I think exactly. I think Cattolica facilities are not in shortage of spots for studying, but definitely the public library in the city center, yeah, it is a problem that they are trying to fix. I cannot say that they're not trying to fix because I would not be honest. They are trying their best, but for now, it's not enough. They have to work a little bit more in trying to um, build more facilities for university students because Piacenza is growing fast. Piacenza is growing fast. I don't know if it's for our cause, like because many students are coming, and most of these students they are not from Piacenza; they are from somewhere else. So they buy a house in the city center. They inhabit the city center. They make the city center more vibrant. 600 international students in 6 years are a huge number for a town like Piacenza because they live in the city center and they use those facilities. They use they go to shops, and so I feel like the town is improving from that side, but the facilities they have to deal with this growth.
But you can just go to Cattolica's library, right? Sorry, I don't want to talk about the libraries forever, but I'm just curious.
No, no, of course, yeah. But like if you finish classes, the thing is, realistically speaking, if you finish classes at 5:30 and you have until 8 p.m. to study,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not enough. It's
What
not enough.
about
It doesn't feel enough.
what about your like labs and stuff? Where are you doing like your other activities, like your other clinic, like not clinical, but like your lab activities or your anatomy labs, histology labs, micro labs? Like
Okay,
where are you doing these?
so the labs they are basically part of the research clerkship. To be honest, when you go through the histology course, for example, you don't really get to see a real histology lab. They are opening a histology lab in Palazzo Portici. This is like a real short-term project. This time it's short-term project, at least this time. But at the same time, lab experience it just comes with the research clerkship. So it's either Parma, even though I don't suggest going to Parma. Like the thing is, we have very good facilities at the Piacenza Hospital, and what I expect is that the University of Parma will increasingly be more aware of the fact that most of the things that you do in Parma, you can do them in Piacenza. It's the same devices, not for all of them. Like physiology lab, you will have to travel to Parma if you're interested in that. But for microbiology, for pathology, we have a hematology lab. We have the same. And when you go to Piacenza Hospital, you really get to see very advanced standards, I think. Very advanced standards. Um, so I what I what I wish to is that University of Parma will be more aware of the fact that you can do basically everything in Piacenza, unless you are interested in a certain field like a neurosurgery, which is important. But at the same time, it's doable. It's still doable.
Mm-hmm.
So for the labs, yeah,
So what about
this is mine for now.
but what about like an anatomy lab? Like, do you guys have like anatomy models? Do you have like the big fancy table? I can never remember what it's called. The anatomy table.
The anatomage table. The anatomage table. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They have an anatomage table in Parma. Professors, they usually just bring anatomy models all the way from Parma to Piacenza for
Okay.
teaching anatomy. They just bring them. We don't have like a cadaver dissection opportunities. That's something that I know some universities offer. Unfortunately, University of Parma doesn't offer cadaver dissections for now. At the same time, we were talking with Sarah before starting the recording. I see that many students are very interested and very excited about the idea of cadaver dissections in the first year. What I've also noticed is that this kind of excitement rapidly decreases when you start having hospital experiences, when you go to the OR. Not saying it's similar, not saying it's the same thing, but I think you can kind of have similar opportunities by entering an operating room and having doctors who can explain you 3D anatomy during laparoscopy. That's something that happened in Parma that we have organized. I've also tried as a representative to open a discussion about buying an anatomage table for Piacenza Hospital, because you can also perform very easy surgical simulations on the anatomage table. So we were also trying to explain to them that it could be interesting for the resident students, and even though it costs a lot, it basically costs like a Maserati. So that's the reason why we don't have one in Piacenza, but we have one in Parma. You can travel to Parma to see that. It's basically like a big, very big iPad.
Yeah, they're
And it's
very.
exciting. I cannot say
No,
it is exciting. I
they're
want to
very
buy one.
good. They are
I
very
want
very
one to be.
expensive. The thing is
They are
like
expensive.
I'm quite against, like, I wouldn't say I'm against dissections, but what I found in my experience is that high school students, they think like cadavers are very cool and interesting and different and edgy, and like it's like going to be their.
They are really not.
No, they're not. They're not. And I think you think it's like a necessary part of your education, but it's actually really not at all. It's not accurate at all to, because by the time you put it in formaldehyde and you open it and you do this and you do that, like it's really not that accurate of a reflection. And most universities around the world, they no longer do dissections, they do prosections. But anyway, I think it's sad that you guys don't have the direct access to the table or models, but I really don't think a dissection is that big of a deal. And once you start moving through medical school, you just realize that actually it doesn't matter at all. Like, as someone who went to a dissection, I was just like, why? I didn't even want to do this. So, yeah, don't worry about it.
Look, I have to say I did cadaver dissection in a private clinic because I thought it was a necessary part of my education for anatomy. So I've had that experience. I really agree with you on the fact that
Yeah,
it's really not necessary. At the same time, the cadavers are usually not fresh. They're just treated with chemical substances. They are very dehydrated. So most of the anatomical parts are not even exactly in place. Maybe they've been
exactly.
opened many times. So I think it's just part of the excitement of being a medical student who wants to find the motivation somehow, because we can tell ourselves that passion is the most important deal breaker for going through exams, and passion is everything is going to be interesting as long as you have passion. But some things, okay, we have to say some things during medical school are just boring. You will have to go through them, like the Krebs cycle. It's so important, but I know very few people who found the Krebs cycle that interesting, you know. And so some students, they try to find the motivation outside, from cadaver dissections, from going to the hospital, from seeing an echo. Okay, one thing, recently I've discovered there is a very proactive perspective representative in the first year. The first year students were able to have an echograph class, thanks to one of the first year students who was able to arrange these classes. And I think they found it more exciting than a cadaver dissection, because you can see your organs with that. Like it's nice. Like you have a small hint of a clinical experience in the first year.
I mean, it's just funny to me because I understand. Like, I remember when I was in first year, it was also very exciting to, you know, like the first time you palpate a patient.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, it's very exciting. But like when I'm thinking about it now, I'm just like, using an ultrasound is actually so difficult. It's so difficult to understand what you're looking at. It's so difficult to understand the physics of it. And so if they were like, oh, let's let the first years go and play with this, I'd be like, why? They don't understand anything. They're not going to understand anything. But on the flip side, I do agree that I remember it was very exciting and very like you become like so full of joy and pride, and you're like, oh, this is going to be.
I agree. Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. That's why motivation is important for a first year student, but cadaver dissections are really not. Like you can find some other ways to.
So we kind of got like very off topic while still being in topic, but to talk a little bit more about the boring stuff, and then we'll come back to the more exciting stuff.
Sure thing.
What's the yearly calendar like? How does your exam, like what are the exam sessions like? How do they fit in to the academic calendar?
So I have to say, compared to other medical schools, we have many dates. It's it makes things a little bit less stressful, even though medical school is stressful per se. But we have 9 dates throughout the year. We have 2 dates in February, 1 in April, 3 during the summer from June to August, first days of August, then 2 in September and 1 in December. So if you feel like you have to spend some extra time on anatomy because you need some more time to memorize all the topics, you will not feel overwhelmed during the summer, because you will think about the fact that you still have 2 dates in September while still having 1 date in December for like bake up. We collectively have this amount of sessions. I think it's enough. I think it's enough. 9 dates are enough.
9 is a lot. I think like
9 is a lot compared to other universities. For example, Politecnico has 5. Has 5. It becomes more stressful. In our case, it's a little bit more doable.
For how it works in Sapienza, like you have guaranteed, I think 7, and then if the professor wants, they'll give you Easter and December as well, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, I think 9 is quite a lot. The only other university that has even more than that is Bari, and they have monthly exams, which is the most crazy thing. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard, but they have attempts every single month, which is just...
Wow.
Yeah, 9 is still very good though. And so the rest of the calendar is the classic. You start classes early October, Christmas, like...
Exactly. Okay, so from October to December, then we have, of course, holidays during the Christmas break. Then there is classes until the first days of February. Then we have the exam session. We start again in February or March, I don't remember. No, usually in February. I'm sorry. Usually it comes. Usually in February. And we finish around June. we finish around June or May. It depends on the semester, because some semesters they have, for example, the again the clinical rotations or the clerkships. So you stop a little bit earlier, and then the other half of the of the semester is just going to Parma, either Parma or the labs or whatever. This is a typical calendar. So if you're able to somehow you manage to give you all your exams in June, you are gonna be fine until October. You will have time for going back to your country if you're an international student, to your hometown. Uh, what I've noticed is that the calendars they arrive pretty late, so it's a little bit difficult. So somehow it's always the same. Like we always start the same day. So for example, we always start on the 1st of October, but the official notification, the official news arrives a little bit late. So if you want to buy the tickets early, this is something to consider. Usually you will have to look for a last minute offer, because nobody will guarantee you that you will be able to finish all your exams by that specific date, or maybe there's going to be some changes. Exam dates, however, are usually very rigid, like they don't change usually, which is something good, because I've heard that in some other medical schools, professors, since they're also doctors and they're overwhelmed for their work, they sometimes change the exam dates, which is a shame, because this makes the life of medical students difficult. No, I didn't see that happening quite often here.
Okay. And what about the fee structure? Do you know how that works for like how expensive it is for the university? Like not for rent and stuff,
So
just the university fees.
the university fees for Italian students who don't have like a scholarship. Usually the scholarships they just work by your ISE, which is like the amount of very easy. It's not exactly that, but trying to make it very easy. The amount of money that your parents earn or you earn. Um, According to that, there is going to be a certain fee. Usually, Emilia Romagna is not an expensive region. Emilia Romagna is one of those regions which have many scholarships, many fasce di reddito, which translates like the amount of money that you will have to spend according to the income.
Mm-hmm.
That's the right word. I'm sorry, income. That's the right word. I pay around a little bit more than 2,000 euros, but for international students, I know it's cheaper. Um, I feel like I'm not sure about that, because I'm not an international student, so I may be saying something which is completely wrong, but I think it's around 200 euros.
Ah,
Some students
so
have,
cheap.
I think so,
Okay.
around 200, 300 euros. And many students, they actually have something which is called Ergo Scholarship. What is Ergo? Ergo is the regional institution which provides with scholarships and tuitions and residencies for students who cannot afford those. So it's really not only about scholarships. It's a really an important institution within the region Emilia-Romagna, which is trying to set the level of welfare very high. And
Just
so
a
this is an advantage.
just a
I'm sorry.
question for the scholarship body. So you said that they might give accommodation, but when they give, is there a student accommodation in Piacenza, or is it only located in Parma and students would have to travel every day?
There is no such a thing like an ergo residence in Piacenza,
Okay.
but there are residencies in Piacenza which have a convention with ergo, which means that ergo will you will pay the same amount of money. Basically, you will
Okay,
pay the same
perfect.
amount of money for a room in those residences. Um, I know some students actually. I think a big portion of the international students they get the ergo scholarship, which is around like several thousand euros per year. Very good news if you're considering studying in Piacenza. because I know for sure that it's around several thousand of euros, and they make the difference for an international student. They make the difference in Piacenza, even though Piacenza is a pretty expensive province,
Mm-hmm.
not for accommodation but for cost of living. Even though it's pretty expensive, you can still somehow manage to live here with an ergo scholarship. The details. I don't know all the details about the scholarships because as a representative, I'm like in a representative association. We try to split the work, and there are some representatives who know everything about the process for applying for the scholarships and everything. So if you're interested in that, you can maybe text me on LinkedIn if you want, and I
Mm-hmm.
will try to put in contact if you're listening. I will try to put you in contact with some representatives who know all the details about it, because I don't want to say things that turn out to be wrong. It's just that there are some representatives who know much more than me on this specific topic. I know, for example, the requirements for having the scholarship. In the
Mm-hmm.
first year, it's just, I think it's just the income, but starting from the second year, you will have to get at least 20 credits from exams in first year, which is doable. You will find out that it's doable by the deadline, by the time of the deadline. Then for the third year, you will have to have finished all the exams of the first year, plus 20 credits from the second year, and so on. This is the minimum requirement, which is still like reasonable and flexible compared to other medical schools in Italy, as far as I know. This is because Ergo is independent and is trying to set the level of welfare pretty high. I think
Is
they somehow managed to do that.
is there like a minimum grade requirement, or is it only the number of credits?
I I don't think there is a minimum GPA that you need to have. I'm pretty sure, but again, for like being 100% sure, I want to consult with the other representatives. What I know is that there is no such a requirement like GPA, just credits.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I kind of just have like two general-ish questions left. One is to do with like your class size, dynamics, collaboration,
Hmm.
and your relationship with the professors, let's say. So once we go through
Okay.
that, and then I have like one last question, and then I'll like give you the floor to talk about whatever you might want to mention, and like foreign
Sure.
experiences, etc. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
So, the dynamics, since it's a very small class, very small environment, like what to expect is 140, 150 students in one class, multiplied for like 6 years. So we are still like a small reality in the university, Italian university system. I feel like we are all on the same boat, so we share the same problems. With my colleagues, there is this kind of weird relationship. We are somehow all friends because we share the same problems. We try to face the same things together. The exams, which are tough, there is not such a thing like a toxic competitive environment. I come from a very competitive background, and I think most of the students who are applying for medical school in Italy are coming from a competitive background. What I can say is that we kind of somehow metabolize the fact that we're not gonna be like, not everybody's gonna be a neurologist, not everybody's gonna be an anesthesiologist, and this is the reason why multidisciplinary teams exist, because we have to consult each other. There is no such a thing like I will enter specialization because I was better than my colleague in my same class. At a larger scale in Italy, yes, if you want to stay in Italy, there is a residency test. Of course, there is like, you will have to compete with all the others, but it's on a larger scale. So in class, I don't feel there is a competitive environment. The dynamics are very, very friendly. And I've noticed that most international students, they are able to find a place in the city by having a group of friends for life. I feel like most of the students have found their place. Now, my other suggestion is Apart from that, trying to find a place in the town, your friends, etc. Try to also find a place for yourself within the university machine, like feeling like a gear in a bigger machine of University of Parma will help you throughout the medical years. I try to find one for myself by being a representative, by being the founder of a congress at University of Parma, by trying to enter IFMSA Italy. We're going to talk about that maybe later. And these are the dynamics. Like, you have to try to find a mentor. With the professors, there is a negative side, the fact that we have too many professors, I think. Too many professors. I'm gonna give the example of neurology. For neurology, we have like registered officially 9 professors. Too many. Because each time I was going to class, it was difficult to make boundaries with them, like to try to see them as mentors, because their stay in Piacenza was too short. So trying to find a mentor, which is something else that is very important throughout medical school, depending on also like your how you deal with medical school, with studying, etc. Like, it really depends on you, but it will not happen out of nowhere. It will not pop up in the process. You will have, I'm sorry, I heard some noises. You will have to find one for yourself. The professors are usually very flexible and young. This is another advantage. We have many young professors, which are usually sided by some older, more experienced professors, but most of them are young. So they also have some young methodologies of teaching. Some students, some colleagues, I know for sure they don't like the way they explain that. But in my experience, I can say for most subjects, professors were able to give out slides and materials with an actual content, not just images and everything, like a content, a text that you can start from when studying. And the professors are also very available with the students who want to differentiate themselves. Like, if you want to travel somewhere else for Erasmus program, for an exchange program, they will try to motivate you in doing so. Again, because they are pretty open-minded from that point of view,
Yeah.
I think.
So the thing I wanted to circle back to something that you said that was kind of interesting, with trying to find a place to like insert yourself in the university, like becoming a
Exactly.
part of the machine. I do actually agree that once you become a part of the system, it's a lot easier to not hate it, let's say, or see a little bit. But I'm curious to how that would look for someone who doesn't speak Italian. Because obviously you're Italian, right? And you were friends with Giacomo, who was already in the student association. And
Yes,
the
right.
Italians are, of course, I mean, like, I made friends with Italians very easy in my first year, thank God, because we had very nice Italians in our class. But there are classes and in other universities where the Italians tend to stick together and the foreign students can't find out information. So how does becoming a cog in the system work when you don't speak Italian the early years?
So, okay, as for the last thing that you said, I didn't see, again, dynamics point of view, I didn't see this happening a lot in my class. Like, we have many mixed groups of Italians staying with international students. Me, myself, I'm an example because in my group of friends, like, most of my friends are not Italian. But, okay, this was just for trying to reassure someone who's thinking maybe like they will not be able to be friends with Italian students. No, that's not like something that really happens that often, at least in Parma. The question is very interesting. The reality is, I don't know how to answer, because as an Italian, I see that I was privileged. In my experience, I was privileged because I could speak fluent Italian. I had some other experiences in the past which brought me to a certain mindset that you have to kind of sneak up and find your opportunities. But for someone who is maybe a little bit more introvert, doesn't speak Italian, What I can say for sure is that if you're considering studying in Italy, Piacenza is one of those places where you can find out that most young people can speak fluent English. This should not be a problem. Even in the Italian course, if you want to be friends with the people in the Italian course, they usually speak fluent English. Even the adults, sometimes the professors the professors, they most of the times they speak fluent English. So, like few exceptions. Uh, but this is not something that I cannot that I can. I've seen many students who were able to somehow find their place inside of the university by becoming representatives or by entering some associations which are not directly associated with the University of Parma, which act on a more national level or international level. But that's for sure a problem which is shared by all the medical universities in Italy, not just Parma. All the medical universities in Italy have this kind of problem, like how to deal with it. What I can say is, since the university is small, you will see me in the in the university. Try to come, try to speak to me, and I will for sure do my best to make you feel comfortable and make you find your place in the university. That's what I can say.
Okay. So
This is
what
the
I'm what
best advice
I'm
that I can.
what I'm getting from this is Emilio is going to find you a job in the university. This is
In
the
the university,
recording.
probably not a job.
No, this is caught in 4K
Probably
now.
not a job, but probably not a job. But for sure, I will try to do my best to make you feel at home, because that's the best I can do. I'm not an international
This
student, so I don't share the same
I
difficulties.
understand.
No.
The interesting thing is you said earlier that you made some sort of like congress or conference thing, right? You said something like that you
Yes.
right. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So the full name is ICOSIMS, International Student Congress of Clinical Innovation and Medical Sciences. I know it's very generic, but we
It's a very
had to
long
be
name.
generic. It's a very long name, ICOSIMS. But you will find out most of the student congresses out there, they also have even longer names. So we have noticed by traveling around Europe and being very involved in the research side of being a medical student that most European countries, they have their own student congresses. They are important. They are especially important if you want to practice in a safe environment. Of course, it's difficult to access those prestigious congresses which happen to be a place for mostly medical doctors, PhD students, professors. If you want to somehow enter the research field, one of the first steps is a student congress. Since we didn't have such a thing like an international student congress in Italy, we had some for Italian medical students, which are in Italian. Since we've noticed this gray area that we could fill, we founded this congress and made partnership with other European student congresses. And we are at our second edition, which will take place in November 7th, 8th, and 9th of November. The first edition, I complexively say that it was a great success because we had many international students, not from University of Parma, coming all the way to University of Parma to present their works. And this was a big satisfaction. The university was very open-minded towards this idea. They did everything which was in their power to make that happen, like the Congress happen. And again, if you want to find a place during your first year at the University of Parma, maybe the Congress is one of those things you can start from because it's entirely in English. And so you can conduct, like you can have a role, an active role in the organization of a medical congress, which you can also write down in your CV, um, like directly like that. It's simple as that. But by the way, the congress, so you can find more information on the Instagram page or the website. I think it's a great opportunity because since we have a research clerkship, at the end you will also have some research somehow able to have a research paper published, or not even published, like you somehow manage to produce something, you can apply to present it at our Congress. This is a great opportunity, I think. There are some other opportunities in University of Parma. We are very lucky because we have one of the most important associations of SISM in Parma, directly in Parma. What is SISM? Segretariato Italiano degli Studenti in Medicina. I'm sorry for saying it in Italian. It's part of IFMSA Italy. That's the translation, International Federation of Medical Students Association, blah, blah, blah. In practice, we have many areas of interest. We organize courses, workshops for medical students in the field of medical education, sexual and reproductive health. And we also organize exchanges, research exchanges, or professional clinical exchanges for medical students. Since we have one of the biggest associations of SISM within Italy, we are able to guarantee a certain amount of students each year to do an exchange abroad. I will go to Indonesia in October, thanks to SISM, because I was first treasurer of SISM in Parma, and then I entered the national committee as a regional assistant, coordinating the activities of many within my area of interest. There is also the SISM of Sapienza. I am basically coordinating the activities of SISM of Sapienza.
Yeah,
Right
I
now.
will never forgive SISM because they took my money for an exchange to send me to
What?
Brazil, and they told me 4 days
Okay.
before my internship was meant to start what city I'd be going to. So I paid the full amount, the €400 or whatever it is. I got my placement for Brazil. I was so excited to go, but they wouldn't tell me what city it was until 4 days before it was meant to start. And when I asked for my money back, they told me that they only give you the money back if they were 45 days late to telling you. But it would have been 45 days late. Like, I would have finished the internship. So they took my money and I didn't go to Brazil. And I will never forgive them for that. And that happened in, I think, my 5th year.
I am extremely sorry to
It's
hear
okay.
your experience,
It happened years ago.
period.
But yeah.
But okay, I don't want to be the, but it was actually, the fault was on the Brazil
Yeah,
side of
SISM told me
IFMSA,
the
actually.
same thing. They told me the same thing here. They said that it was Brazil's fault that because it was
Brazil's
something.
fault, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then I think the year after I signed up for something else. I mean, I know a lot of people had a lot of very positive experiences with it, and I recommended a lot of people to join SISM because, like, they really offer a lot of cool places. Like, I think I was offered between like India, Brazil, and somewhere else
Yeah.
that's like really far, like really cool places. But don't pick Brazil. If you're watching this, don't pick Brazil. They will
Don't be
abandon
Brazil.
you.
I cannot say that as a national part of the national committee of SISM. I cannot say that, but it was Brazil's fault, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Some other students from Parma, they just prefer to go on exchange with SISM and not Erasmus for several reasons. Some of them are the fact that when trying to find a place for Erasmus, they are required to speak. For example, if they want to go to France, they are required to speak French, and they don't speak French, so they cannot. They assume they cannot give an exam, like they cannot pass an exam in France, so they just don't depart. The cool part about SISMA is the fact that they offer a wide range of countries that are not covered by Erasmus, because for medical school, especially for medical school, it's difficult to go abroad. Usually, all the opportunities are in Europe, Eastern Europe, or Spain, France, Portugal. These are the most important destinations. They don't offer Indonesia or India or Brazil or South Korea or Japan. That's a range of countries that you can only access with SISM, unfortunately. So you should also consider these kind of opportunities. For me, so far, everything has been very smooth. That's another suggestion. Like if you want to find a place within the university, you can maybe enter IFMSA Italy, and for once feel part of something that is not confined to University of Parma, but on a national scale. You will also be able to compare yourself to other medical students around Italy and around the world, which is gonna make think a little bit further. Also for the specialization, you will probably consider some countries that you didn't consider before. It's something that you should think about as a suggestion. I'm sorry for your experience, though. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It happened years ago. Like I've graduated, I'm done. But like it was just really funny because at the time I was so excited because I was so excited to go to Brazil, and then this happened. But I know everyone else has had very positive experiences with their exchanges, and they've tried to do it like multiple times. So yeah, it is a very positive thing. Also because you do a lot of courses as well, not only like the exchanges, but there's like a lot of organized things. No, SISM is really great. Okay, so is there anything that you would tell someone, something that you wish you knew, or what type of student is best for Parma, or like a warning to students? Like, is there like any announcement you would make to anyone who's watching this video? And then I'll take questions from the audience.
Okay. So I will try to answer this question because it's a very difficult question. I will try. So depending on what you feel is most important to you, try to consider all the options and then pick Piacenza if you are fine with living in a medium-sized town. It's not a city. I will not define Piacenza as a city, or like a university town like Padova or Pavia. It's something in between. So if you come from Tehran, for example, or from Izmir, which is a big city, try to consider the fact that you will not go to such a vibrant city. If you're fine with that, great. Don't try to tell yourself, I need to find a place without distractions, because we are all university students. It's best years of our lives. It's our 20s. Being a university student, international student in Italy, is an unforgettable time of your life. You have to give a value to this experience, and so try to choose Piacenza if you think that you can make a value out of it. Consider the fact that it's very close to Milan, but it's less expensive, very close to Parma and Bologna, Reggio Emilia, Modena, but it's much cheaper. Try to consider the fact that it's very flat. This is something interesting. It's the flattest place in Italy. So if you are, yes, it's the flattest place in Italy.
I love
you will
that.
Not see.
I'm obsessed with bikes, so like that's like biking heaven. Like that's perfect.
Exact biking. Yes. Everybody has a bike. Everybody uses bikes for travel anywhere within the town. You will not see the sea from Piacenza. You will not see mountains from Piacenza. So if you come from from a small village from the mountain and you love that, maybe don't consider Piacenza. This is something which you may think it's secondary, but it's 6 years of your life at least. So think about it. I come from the Amalfi Coast. Okay, so I was used to see both mountains behind me and the sea in front of me. For me, it was a huge cultural shock to move to Milan. I've lived in Milan for 2 years, and it was difficult for me to adapt to the fact that it was all flat. But still, the city was vibrant and had a soul, exactly like the Amalfi Coast. The Amalfi Coast is close to Naples, so it's known to be to have a soul. When I moved to Piacenza, then it was flat, and it was not as vibrant as Milan. Try to consider that. One other thing, because I know it's a very important question, that many students do or forget to ask. Um, where is best to live in Piacenza? City center. There is just one option, city center. Not saying that your balcony has to be in front of the main square. We are not rich kids, we know. But the most important thing is to be in the city center. Again, you may think that you don't want distractions, so it's important for you to find a room right next to the university. But try to consider the fact that you're a university student. You will want to cheer when your exams when you will pass your exams. You will want to go out at night. One thing is to having to travel for 20 minutes in the morning, very doable since the classes start at 10:30. Um, and one other thing is having to walk back home to Palazzo Portici from the city center, and it's like maybe 40 minutes walk, 50 minutes walk without any bus at night. So my opinion is, since the accommodations are not that expensive, try to find a room in the city center. You will feel that you will go out and feel like the city is still vibrant, still lively, and still nice to live in. If you live like for 6 years in a place which is relatively isolated, like Palazzo Portici, maybe you will not have an experience as great as other colleagues. That's what I would suggest, like when considering studying in Piacenza and trying to find an accommodation in Piacenza. But again, if you have any answers, that you can just text me on LinkedIn, and I will try to be as helpful as possible with all the other questions that you may have, because I cannot be like, maybe right now there are so many things that I would want to talk about, but they don't pop up in my mind, and so I just forget talking about them.
No problem. I think that was a really really nice like summary of everything, and because what I always tell people is to make your decision based on the city and not necessarily like the university just because you think it might have a good
Absolutely,
ranking. People don't tend to listen to
absolutely.
me, but I think you like really encapsulated that point really well. So I'm going to I just asked the chat if they have any questions to ask them, and then I'm going to
Sure.
basically ask you. I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention while we wait for people to ask.
No, I just agree with your point.
Ah,
Try to think about the city. If you would be okay to live in Piacenza, rather than maybe the ranking, or try to consider the fact that the university is in the north or in the south. Try to consider there are some differences, slight differences in the culture, and the fact that people may or may not speak English. Try to consider all these things rather than the rankings, because it really depends. Like at the end of the day, it's you that makes the difference. Like how much study, how many things you manage to do as extracurricular activities during the 6 years. If you are considering to stay in Italy and specialize in Italy, it really doesn't matter if you're coming from one university or the other, even though there are some objective differences. Like some universities have a better quality of education than others. We cannot deny that. Okay, maybe you don't agree with it.
I
Okay,
mean,
look.
I'll put it this way. I don't deny that there are huge quality differences, but I think if you put a good student into the best university and you put a good student into the worst university, right? To me, like the quality of the student makes the difference rather than the quality of
Yes,
education. And so,
yes,
what I don't
definitely.
want people is being like, oh, I'm going to go to Milan even though I hate everything about it because I just saw in this arbitrary university ranking that takes into account how many toilets the university has that it's the best university. Because
That's true.
most students don't know how the
They think that
rankings
way.
work. Yeah, so
Yeah, they think that
that's
way. Yeah, no, okay. I get that. I really get your point, and I absolutely agree with that, because in the end, guys, don't expect to be like helped during your study sessions. Like you will absolutely discover that you're studying alone, that you're getting the degree by yourself. You're getting the medicine and surgery degree by yourself,
yeah.
by studying. Yes, that's the most important thing. No, I absolutely agree with that. Also, because there is another slight cultural difference between Italy and some other countries from where international students come from. Some university students abroad, they have this culture of moving out to go to the best university, which is the best opportunity for themselves and for their future. In Italy, statistically speaking, most good students they just consider going to the closest university when they want to do medicine. So even though they are very very good students, they most of the time they just go to the closest university. Some others they can afford to go somewhere else. For example, for me it was a little bit of a compromise. I wanted to study in the north, so I took action and I moved to the north. I was not thinking that maybe the quality of education at the University of Parma is better than the quality of education at Federico II or Vanvitelli. I don't know. I don't even know how it works at Federico II or Vanvitelli. I just wanted to go back to the north since I been living in Milan for 2 years. But most other students, very good students, they just go to the closest university. So it's really like what makes the difference. It's you. That's where
My
I agree on.
one of my classmates, this is the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to ask the questions.
Yeah.
One of my classmates, he is currently doing his first year of residency in Harvard in Boston. And the only reason why
That's
he went
impressive.
to Sapienza was because it was a 5-minute walk from his house. Like, so when we asked him, like, oh, did you come to Sapienza because it's going to help? And he was like, no, because I can walk to university. Like, for him, it made no difference. And I'm sure he would have ended in Harvard, whether he went to Sardinia, to Sicily, to any university in Italy, he would have ended up in the same place, in my opinion. It has nothing to do with
Yeah, it's very almost a passive process for Italy to just go to the closest university. Most of the times, passive process.
Cool. So I have a few questions for you. First one.
Sure.
Is how much does one of these exchanges that you mentioned cost? So I think this is in reference to the CISM exchanges, like when you're going to Indonesia. How much does that cost on average?
So anything between 300 euros and 400 euros. We've set the maximum, one of the last congresses, we've set the maximum on the national level to 400 euros. Now, it's easier since it's an exchange, so someone will come to your country, to your local committee. It means that trying to find an accommodation for 1 month for a student in Messina, it's cheaper than finding an accommodation for 1 month for a student in Milan. So some local committees can afford to set the price to 300 euros and making it easier for a student. But still consider, this is just my personal 2 cents, consider that spending 400 euros for 1 month of living abroad is still very cheap because you have access to countries like Finland, which are considered pretty expensive, for 400 euros. That's a great deal, in my opinion, because 400 euros it's roughly what you spend for 1 month and a half in Piacenza. Like living in Piacenza for 1 month, it's approximately 250 euros to 350 euros. So I would say 400 euros for a 1 month exchange is still very good.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to add the flight. The flight is not included, of course, for like obvious reasons. But I think it's reasonable.
I think it's very cheap because you also get, like, I think if I remember correctly, like one meal is guaranteed a day. You get your accommodation for free. People take you into the hospital for free. Yeah. It's in my opinion, it's extremely cheap. 300 to 400 euro is nothing. Okay, what is the lowest cost airport? What is the main way international students get there?
Okay. There is many options. There is an airport. You will find out there is an airport in Parma. Usually, they don't serve many companies because it's a very small airport. So it's either you go to Bologna airport and then go to Piacenza with a train, or I would say Linate and Malpensa. If you're coming from Europe, maybe you would use the Ryanair company or other low-cost companies, which usually serve Bergamo airport much more than Linate and Malpensa. And then from Bergamo, it's just easy because there are buses every like 40 minutes. There is a bus taking you to Milan, and then from Milan you go to Piacenza. So Piacenza, try to consider these. Piacenza is on a straight line which crosses all Emilia-Romagna, all the region from Milan to Bologna, then Rimini and Riccione, which are famous because of the sea and the nightlife, etc., and the city, the center of Molise and Abruzzo with Ancona, Pescara. This tract is served by a regionale veloce, which translates as a fast regional train. Now, if you come from Turkey or some other countries which are in the same area, I've noticed most of my friends, when thinking about trains, they think about long distances. And it works the same for me coming from the south, from the Amalfi Coast. I've always thought of the train as something for the long distances. But in Piacenza, you will discover the trains are fast and cheap, relatively cheap, and they work as a bus. Like you start thinking of the train as a bus, which brings you to Milan, Parma, Bologna very easily. You can technically go to from Piacenza to Milan in 45 minutes. 30 minutes, you're in Parma. Less than 1 hour and a half, you're in Bologna. So it's very easy and relatively cheap. This is, I think, so that's why there is a wide range of. I would suggest Milan. I would suggest Milan and then traveling to Piacenza. But Bologna works just fine.
So this is combining two questions into one. Are all the exams oral from first to fifth year? But I would like extend this question into being, I should have asked this earlier, like the exam modality. Do you have written exams, oral exams, mostly oral? How does it work?
Okay, this is a deal breaker. This is very important. First year is mostly multiple choice tests. Second year is mostly oral tests. From third year on, in my experience so far, it's been almost all of them multiple choice tests. So compared to other medical schools, we have many multiple choice tests. Now, I cannot say this is good for me because I feel like oral tests, in my personal experience, oral tests are more rewarding for me, more rewarding, even though they are less objective. At the same time, if you come from other countries, I name Turkey a lot because most of my friends in my group of friends, so most of the students I make comparisons with, they come from Turkey. You're probably not very used to oral tests, and that could be a cultural shock, which could eventually make you fall behind with exams in the first years. That's something that you have to consider if you're not used to that and you struggle with oral tests. Also because you may be an introvert, which is perfectly fine. Some people are just a little bit more introvert than some others. If it's important to you, maybe this is a positive thing that you can find at the University of Parma, since we have so many multiple choice tests. It could work much better for you.
So you're mostly
For me,
written.
no. Mostly written, yes.
Wow,
Especially in the
okay.
third year, it was mostly written tests. Also, we have been trying to ask for the opportunity to increase a little bit the marks by taking a oral test. Like
An optional,
some
yeah.
students, as an exactly as an option. Like some students are just fine with the marks they get at the multiple choice tests. That's fine. We have asked. Most professors did not give us the opportunity to have oral tests. I understand that somehow because it's difficult for them to give this opportunity to all the students, since they have to come all the way from Parma to Piacenza all the time for 9 times for the year. And most of the times, especially for the oral tests, you go there, 30 people are registered for exams, but just 9 people show up
Yeah, the
for taking the
classic.
oral test. Exactly, that's not very respectful towards professors, even though it's their job. As representatives, I'm saying it's their job. So regardless of how many students are coming, but I understand their point of view. So sometimes they just don't give us that opportunity. And you may think this is a pretty fair system. I respect that. If you like this way, maybe Piacenza works very, very well for you. For
Yeah.
me, the oral tests are just more rewarding. So I wish I had more, but it's just my experience. So I cannot talk for everybody. Some people from my class who will see this interview, they're probably gonna kill me for saying that. But friendly speaking. But
Yes.
that's just my opinion that I
Yeah,
want to
no,
share.
if I showed this interview to people from Sapienza, they would like probably want to find out where you live to beat you up, like saying that you wish you had oral exams. But
because they prefer multiple choice tests.
I mean, written exams, because, okay, I don't want to turn this into a whole debate because the interview's been going on for an hour and a half and we haven't even done part two.
No,
But generally, they find oral exams to be like less objective. There's no way to standardize it. You might get lucky with questions, you might not. The
that's
professor
true.
might have a bias, all these things. But I think oral
That's
exams are a
true. The
skill.
professor may be biased, yes.
Yeah, but I think they're a skill and you can get better at them. And if you learn what to do, it's much easier to score high
What
in
to do,
them.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's much easier to score high in an oral test. That's the thing. But
100%.
anyway, I understand this point of view. Like trying to be more objective. That it's it's an opinion that I respect a lot. It's just like how it works better, how it suits my way of studying. That's it. But for sure, people coming from international backgrounds, from other universities, they will love this system, especially in the third year when they will find out psychiatry is multiple choice, neurology, neurophysiology, neuroanatomy, everything is multiple choice. Pneumology, cardiology. No, I'm sorry. No, cardiology was probably one of the few oral tests. I'm sorry, but all the other hematology, oncology, all multiple choice tests.
Um, okay, so one of them is like, it's a bit of a long question, but does Parma integrate
Sure.
technological advancements in medicine such as AI or robotics into their curriculum? So I'll ask it again.
Okay,
Or did you get it?
I
No, you
got it.
got
I
it.
got
Okay,
it.
perfect.
So, as a content of discussion during teaching, like during classes, yes. Like we do have actually, for example, we have bone histomorphometry or AI classes that you can select if you're interested in them as part of your curriculum. There is like a certain amount of flexibility as for others, which are activities chosen by the student. They translate as activities chosen by the student. You can familiarize with those kind of technologies and softwares. The histology professor, for example, is an expert when it comes to coding in Python and applying this to histomorphometry, etc. And so the more you can get to know these professors and make a connection with them, network with them, the more you can get to see these kind of softwares. That's true. At the same time, if you're expecting these kind of technologies to be integrating during the clinical rotations, then I don't know the answer to that because I didn't start the clinical rotations yet. But I've seen very advanced technologies and standards being used in the microbiology world and the general surgery unit. This is so my experience is limited, but I've never seen like for example AI being used in the clinical field unless something will like during the radiology clinical rotation, I will find out that they actually do use AI. So it's always mostly your choice to get to know these kind of topics more by integrating them in your curriculum, and you will also have to network with the professors who actively work with the AI and all the most advanced softwares.
Okay.
Oh,
Um,
biomimicry, for example. We have some bioengineering professors who are excited to have you in the biotechnological pole in Parma to show you these kind of things. Sorry for interrupting you.
No,
I
no.
just for
It's good. It's good. So this was already kind of answered, but it's do you think we can reach out to professors more to get more practical experience, or can we just shadow
yes,
them? Yeah.
yes, definitely. Actually, some professors they recognize the fact that we are more motivated, not like more hardworking than the students in Parma for the Italian course, not more hardworking, just a little bit more motivated. I think this idea, which is mostly untrue in my opinion, comes by the fact that we ask a lot of things. Like we, compared to the Italian students who have a clear path, like they know that the rotations they start the second year with a nursing course, then at the third year they have the clinical rotations. It's a clear path, so they just follow that path passively. In our case, we just ask more actively. For example, for the pathology professors, we ask to visit their labs in Parma. So this idea of the professors that we are more motivated comes from the fact that we always ask, and they are usually very excited about this, and they usually give us the opportunity to go and visit their labs. Yes, so definitely yes.
Okay.
The only thing is, I'm
Sorry.
sorry.
Go on. No, no. Please continue.
No, no, because the only thing is, you cannot access some clinical experience on a voluntary basis unless you have some vaccinations, the Mantoux test or interferon test for tuberculosis. Those kind of, it's just pure bureaucracy. Once you catch up with that, you can ask some professors to do internato, which is basically interning in their word. It's usually not considered part of your curricular activity, so you're not going to get recognized formally, but you will probably have some paperwork like stating that you have done those hours, just not recognized in the curriculum.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I read about the ongoing talks about an MD PhD program on CIM. So that's the Camici and Movimento, I think, if I remember correctly. Are there any updates
Yes.
on this? Just curious. And Priyanshi also thanks
So
you.
the person is asking is this is very informed, very updated, because that's such a specific question about the MD PhD program and the thing that we are trying to deal with. That so it does, like, there is no such a thing like a MD PhD program in Italy so far. There have
Are
been
you
some
sure?
experiments. There have been some experiments like that, but not like, not the way they are thought in the rest of Europe. It's not exactly the same. Do you have any more information about that? Because Giacomo knows more.
Turin definitely has one, and Sapienza has one for in Italian, not in English. But the
In
way it
Italian.
works, yes, but the way it works is that you have to complete a lot of additional classes, and it still takes you a few extra years. You don't just finish your
Yeah, exactly.
MD. Yeah,
Okay.
but there are MD PhD programs for sure. It's just, I guess the reason why is that like getting into a PhD is actually quite difficult. I don't think a lot of people realize how difficult it is to actually get into a
It is. Yeah.
PhD. And having an MD alone is not enough. You still need a lot of relevant lab experience and a lot of relevant research experience and to be able to get into a PhD to apply for it.
Yeah.
So these programs are basically just designed to put you on a pathway where it's easier for you to enter into the PhD. So you pick up like additional things to do throughout your MD. And then within this pathway, like let's say instead of taking 5 years, you take, I don't know, 3 years. So it's like an accelerated pathway that starts earlier, but it's definitely not something that you do at the same time because a PhD itself is almost the same amount of time as medical school.
Right. Look, at a certain point, you just have to acknowledge, realize, and tell yourself that there are some limits, things that you don't know. So this is one of those times that I'm saying, like that I'm saying directly to you, that I'm not too much informed about MD PhD programs. So rather than giving out some wrong information, I would rather ask the person in the comments in the chat to text me on LinkedIn so that I have the time to consult with Giacomo first and with another medical doctor who was part of Camici Movimento in the past, because he's in the board of advisory of the Italian MD PhD Association. He is very involved in this process and like to make a step forward in Italy towards the MD PhD programs, etc. So as to align to the rest of Europe. Since they are much more involved in this, I would rather just admit that I'm not too informed, even though
It's
Camici
okay.
Movimento is
You
still
can't
working
know
on that.
everything. It's impossible to know
Exactly.
everything. It's fine.
So maybe I will first consult with them and then give out a clear answer on everything that has to be known about the MD PhD programs. Some other things that we're trying to do, though, is to okay, in some other universities around the world, universities sponsor trips for students to present their research projects abroad at congresses, for example. This is not something that happens in Italy. Like usually, the this only applies to PhD students or members of the faculty, and it's not even guaranteed. Most of the times, they have to pay from their own pocket to participate, to take part in these congresses, even though the research projects were conducted within the university. So what we're trying to do is to open a discussion first with the University of Parma and then try to escalate the thing to higher ranks on a national level, to make a change and try to make universities realize that it's important to sponsor trips for students to present their works, especially the ones that were conducted within the university abroad, as part of a relevant research experience during medical school. So that's another side of our efforts. But PhD, MD, PhD, I'm sorry.
I think it's okay. I think you've been doing a great job. Um, so I'm going to ask you two last questions about university study life, and then instead of
Sure,
doing a part two, I'm just going to combine it into this one call because it's getting quite long. So I'll do a combination of
sure,
Q&A
sure
and
thing.
part two questions. So the first one is, you kind of already answered this, but how are the sports facilities, especially for basketball and gym? So I guess this can also be like citywide, not only university, but specifically if there is university.
So we don't have sports facilities of University of Parma in Piacenza. The sports facilities in Parma are just great. They're super advanced, lovely. But in Piacenza, we have this big limitation. So comes to sports, we just use the ones that are basically open to the public in Piacenza or the Cattolica facilities. For example, there is a WhatsApp group, WhatsApp chat for soccer games in medicine and surgery, in the medicine and surgery course. And this is a funny story. They basically do soccer teams for first year, second year, third years, and they just like they play soccer at the Cattolica facilities. That's something you may be interested in. Even though you said basketball, probably not. Okay, you said basketball. I'm not informed. I'm sorry. I'm not
No,
informed. But
it's
I know
fine.
for
It's
sure.
fine.
I know for sure. I know for sure that as a dynamics within the class point of view, it's nice that there is this competitive environment when it comes to sports between the various classes. And yeah, they just use the Cattolica ones because they are right next to the Palazzo Portici, so they are so close. They are
Hmm.
so easily reachable by walking. That
What about gyms, like in general in the city, let's say, not just the university?
there there are many gyms. Uh, they are also pretty cheap, to be honest. The commercial ones are pretty cheap. I spend around 30 euros per month for the gym, which is reasonable, I think. And it's pretty close to the university. The one that I'm talking about is pretty close to the university. There are some others in the city center which are still very easily reachable with bus, etc. So I would not see it as a problem because there is a wide offer. Actually, like in Piacenza, sports is a big deal. For some
Mm-hmm.
reason, for the people living in Piacenza, sport is a big deal. So they have many fields and everything. It's just that what I would like to see coming from University of Parma is more conventions, like more discounts and offers for University of Parma students. That's what I would like to see
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for the
Um,
future.
okay, so moving on to a little bit about the city. Someone asked if it snows in Piacenza. And so I'm curious not only to the answer of this question, but what in general is the weather in Piacenza like year round?
So the weather is extremely hot in the summer and extremely cold, not extremely cold, but pretty cold in the winter. There's little shades of gray in between, unfortunately. Most of the winter is pretty cloudy. Doesn't rain that much. There's not a lot of rain. I think I've seen the snow probably 4 times, 5 times in 3 years. So I cannot say it snows. Sometimes it does during the winter, some days, but no, it's not snowy. The weather, okay, pretty straightforward. Is a little bit. It's not very good. It's not very good because it's very, very hot. It gets very, very hot in summer. So you just want to escape the city at a certain point. This also affects the quality of living in the city center sometimes because there are not many trees that make shadows. So there are some hours of the day from midday to say 4 p.m. The city feels almost like a ghost town during the summer because nobody wants to go out. It's just too hot. You and for this reason, the shops they just open at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. And there is a break in between the morning and the afternoon hours of the shops. You may also want to consider this when choosing where to live. The weather is generally considered to be a little bit better in the south than in the north. Don't expect a better situation if you want to go to Padova or Parma or Bologna. It's very similar weather because we are in the same geographical region. And there is also this other thing: the area is pretty polluted. Eh, this is not because of the. Some people think it's because of the fact that it's a very industrial city, so there are many factories. Partly, of course, this contributes to the pollution, but then we would say, like, we would assume that Milan is even more polluted than Piacenza for obvious reason. The reality is the fact that the Italy, like let's say this is Italy, like the sandal. Piacenza, I would say Piacenza is here and Milan is here. Piacenza, Milan. Here there is a huge chain of mountains, and for the Coriolis phenomenon, all the winds at a very large scale worldwide, when the winds make it like how would you say um, the turbs no probably that's not the right English term, but like they spin at a certain point they're blocked because of the chain of mountains, and so for this reason they bring a little bit of pollution. This is something that you need to consider. The air is generally more fresh in the south than in the north. Expect the same in Milan, expect partly the same in Padova, expect the exact same situation in Bologna. Because of the chain of mountains, there's not a real solution to this problem because it's a large scale problem.
Okay, so what is rent usually like? So what you said the cost of living is kind of high, but what would you put the general like budget at, like housing, prices, rent, going out for meals, groceries, etc.?
It's much cheaper than the other cities close to Piacenza. I'm thinking about Parma, Bologna, Milan. they're much more expensive. I used to spend, okay, this is gonna scare you. I used to spend 900 euros for a room in a shared apartment. It's true. It was a nice area
Sorry,
of
in
Milan.
in
In
Milan, not
Milan.
in
In
Piacenza.
Milan. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
in
god.
Milan.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
Milan. I was spending 900 euros for one room. It was a nice area of the city, that's true, but it was so expensive. Piacenza is just much more chill and relaxed because what I see is realistically speaking, you're gonna spend around 350 euros for a single room in a shared apartment. This is basically the range that I see among my friends. If you can, if you have a little bit more of like compromise, maybe 250 euros, you can go down to 250 euros if you are okay with having a double bed room. So if you want to live with someone else in the same room, the price can even go lower. And we're talking about the city center, so rooms, actual rooms in the city center. So the accommodation, I expect the prices to go high, like to be higher in the future because the demand for accommodation will increase as the University of Parma grows within the university, because Catholic University is expanding. Our course is expecting more and more students for at least other 3 years. So for this reason, the demand will go like will be higher and the prices will increase a little bit, but they will never reach the same amount of money that you have to spend for living in Parma, for example. So that's the range. If you want a single apart, like a small apartment for you or for yourself with no other flatmates, I would say 450 euros, 500 euros would work.
That's a really
This
good
is
price.
realistically speaking. 350 euros is really the average that I would expect for living in Piacenza. For the cost of living, unfortunately, I think it's top five most expensive provinces.
Really
I would,
interesting.
yes, yes. This is for some reasons Piacenza is even more expensive than Parma when it comes to groceries, fuel if you have a car, um, of course the gym and all the services that you want. Traveling is not very expensive, like the bus. Having a ticket for what, like the yearly ticket for the buses, is around, let's say, 130 euros. I think you spend if you have a convention with University of Parma, which I personally have. So it's around 130 euros for 1 year, and it's still good. Um,
What's the transport like? Like do you have a tram? Do you have a metro? Is it just buses?
you really don't need a metro in a small town like Piacenza. Yeah, if they wanted to build one, I would oppose to that because it's like useless money.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the buses can get you anywhere within the city, and they're also pretty efficient, in my opinion, for the amount of that I'm spending, like 130 euros per year. I think the service is pretty good when it comes to like buses having air conditioned or like the warming during the winter. It's nice. There, I think for the MB, which is Metro Bus, so the one that gets you from the city center to the university, most interesting one for a university student. The MB is around approximately, I would say, 15 and anytime between 15 and 20 minutes um, per ride. Like the worst case scenario is that you have to wait around 15 minutes for the bus to come, which is good. I think it's good for a small town like Piacenza. Um, Not many people use that service, to be honest, because many just use the bike, especially in the summer. They just use the bike. When it doesn't rain, they use the bike. Some others, like most of the people in Piacenza, have a car. So for the demand, I think we get a good level of welfare. My only problem with the public transportation is the fact that it stopped so early in at dinner time, 8 p.m. At 8 p.m. you don't have any other like bus that can bring you from the university to the city center. which is bad, but this is an additional reason to just find an accommodation in the city center and leave the city center. Is just better. This is like one of the strongest suggestions to a student, to a prospective student.
Mm-hmm. Um, okay, so can you actually recommend some student-friendly areas near the city center from where you can easily travel to? They wrote Piacenza, but I assume they mean the campus.
From the campus, okay. There are two main squares, which is Duomo and Piazza Cavalli. Piazza Cavalli is the biggest one, and it's served by the MB. But basically, all the city center is served by the MB, either the MB or the number 5, which is another one, goes from the Pubblico Passeggio. You can Google this Pubblico Passeggio so that you have an idea, and it directly brings you to Cattolica University, which means it also brings you to Palazzo Portici. It's really not a big deal as long as you're in the city center. Everything is very family friendly, I would say. The problems start when you go a little bit out of the city center. What I can do is to provide with a small map of the city with some areas that I can highlight with different colors. I can actually do that.
That would be amazing. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I can send it to you on WhatsApp. I can highlight the areas where I suggest to find an accommodation and the areas to avoid, not because they are dangerous. Of course, like any city,
Yeah.
really, there are some areas which are a little bit more dangerous. And for this reason, I have this suggestion. I would give this suggestion. Just
No,
go to
that's
city.
amazing.
It's not expensive. And yeah, this is it. I can provide you with this
That would be
brief.
incredible. I'll link it. I'll link everything anyway in the description, like your LinkedIn, like all the relevant information. I'm gonna put it later on. That would be really great.
My design skills are not very
Doesn't
good, so don't
matter.
expect a very good
No,
answer, but
no.
I can
What?
give an
As
idea.
long as you can just see something, I think it would be more than enough and
Sure.
more than amazing. So I have one last question for you, um, which is, and I really should have asked this earlier as well, and they're kind of follow up. One, is there a necessary certificate to enroll, like for English or for Italian? Um, like, you need to provide an
Okay.
English IELTS or TOEFL, or to go into your clinical years, do you need to provide an Italian certificate? Do you know this?
So I don't think there is this requirement when you apply, but they are gonna ask for an official certificate or to just pass an exam, right? During your years as a medical student, probably in the first year. What I did was I was required to provide with an English certification in my first year. I was already enrolled. I already set some exams, but they asked me to provide with this certification. I was like, I don't have any certification. Like the last time I took a IELTS was 4 years ago, so it doesn't last. Like officially, doesn't last for like. Um, I got I got mad. I got almost mad, and I wanted to email the faculty, but then they just specified that if you don't have an official certification, that's fine. You're gonna be provided with an English test that you will have to pass.
Mm-hmm.
It was the easiest thing on earth. Trust me. Trust me. It was so easy to pass. Like really, it was just I think to be all set with bureaucracy. It was not even to assess because once you pass the first exams in English, that's already the proof that you can deal with an English, like a university which is taught in English. So for them, I think it was more like having all the documents all set with bureaucracy, etc. So they just asked us to do this small test. And additionally, what I can say is that they asked us. I don't know if they asked for the same thing to second and third year students.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm not second and third. Like the students who came after me, which are now going for the third and
Yeah.
second year. I'm sorry, this was
No, I
what I
got what you
meant.
meant. Yeah.
Um, so if you don't have a certificate, you can just be very chill. They will probably ask you to just pass this
What
very
about
simple.
I mean, I know you're Italian, but do you know if of your classmates it was required to pass an Italian class to start your clinicals in fourth year? Do you know if there's some sort of plan like that?
So it is not mandatory, but it's strongly suggested to enroll in the official university program for Italian, which is organized by the Language Center of University of Parma. The situation is difficult. I had to deal with some problems as a representative because the language center wanted mandatory attendance, like they wanted the students to actually be present at class. They didn't want to give out recordings of the classes, but the classes were being conducted at the same time of our normal classes, which have mandatory attendance. So this was creating a paradox,
Yeah.
which we had to solve. And at the same time, at a certain point, the administration made a little bit of confusion and the thought that the Italian test was mandatory for accessing the clinical years. As of now, I can guarantee it's not mandatory to pass the Italian exam. But this being said, things may change in the future because the course is new. They are doing some experiments. I would not be surprised if at a certain point of the history of this course, the faculty will decide to make it mandatory for students to pass the test to enter clinical years. But for now, no.
Okay. These Italian classes you were talking about, they're provided for free to all of the students of Piacenza?
Yes. Yes, even though I think the best language center that you can find in Piacenza is your Italian friends.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
there is not such a thing like a class and professors that work more than practicing your Italian with your friends for anything. Like even living, maybe trying to find a flatmate, an Italian flatmate, could be a huge deal breaker when it comes to learning Italian in the first 3 years. Italian is not an easy language. I know that for sure. So practicing is really the best like thing that works the most. But the course is free, the one of the university. I cannot guarantee about the quality because I didn't do it.
Of
So
course not.
and I didn't
Yeah.
and I didn't even ask the ones who attended it. Unfortunately, I didn't ask about the quality of the course, but I assume it's just fine. It works just fine.
Okay. Okay, that's everything from me. I think we were very thorough. Emilio, thank you so much. You like really went above and beyond to answer everything. I appreciate it so much. I will leave all your details and whatever else you would like. I don't know if there's like any final comment you would like to say or any passing.
One final comment, guys. Please feel free to text me on Instagram, on LinkedIn for anything. I will try to do my best to put in contact with someone else, or I will directly reply to your inquiries. And thank you so much for
No,
your
no.
time and interest towards University of Parma, because I'm happy that I could give my like my point of view, negative sides and positive sides. Now you know what to expect, at least when coming here, what to actually expect.
No, there's nothing to thank me. I just want students to make better informed decisions, and I think it's unfortunate that universities like Parma don't get as much attention as, like, let's say the bigger ones who have the
The bigger
resources.
universities.
Yeah. Okay, I will stop the recording here.